In 1824, leading Philadelphians gathered to honor the memory of the city's most famous scientist. And so the Franklin Institute began as a center promoting the mechanical arts. But over time, it would embrace all of science and become a meeting ground, an annual rendezvous for the daring, the prolific, the visionaries, those whose perspectives would alter history, revolutionize industries, dig deeply into the fabric of the universe, and draw ideas that would leave behind us old horizons swept with progress and change the world. For nearly 200 years, the exceptional have come to Philadelphia to take a place in history, receive one of the oldest recognitions in science, and be honored in the memory of Benjamin Franklin. The Franklin Institute Awards. Science history happens here.
And now, please welcome the 2017 Franklin Institute laureates, escorted by their laureate sponsors. Alan R. Mulally, escorted by sponsor Gerard Jones. Michael I. Posner, escorted by sponsor Nora Newcomb. Marvin L. Cohen, escorted by sponsor Torgny Gustafsson. Douglas C. Wallace, escorted by sponsor Janice Taylor Gordon. Krzysztof Matyjaszewski and Mitsuo Sawamoto, escorted by sponsor Roger Gray. Claude Lorius, escorted by sponsor John Waymiller. Representing Mildred S. Dresselhaus, Elizabeth Dresselhaus, escorted by sponsor Brian Sullivan. Representing Nick Holonyak Jr., Russell Dupuis, escorted by sponsor Baram Nebet. And introducing the Franklin Institute President and CEO, Larry Dubinsky, and Chair of the Franklin Institute Board of Trustees, Don Morell. And now, please welcome our Master of Ceremonies, host of NBC News' Sunday Today, and co-host of MSNBC's Morning Joe, Willie Geist.
Take your seats, please, if you would. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Franklin Institute Awards. My name is Willie Geist. I'm so pleased to be with you tonight. face to face with the man himself. That's not intimidating at all, a 20-foot statue of one of the greatest Americans who ever walked the earth. Now, I should say, in the interest of transparency, I have no business being in a room full of such great scientific minds. I was demoted in my 9th grade biology class and sent down the hall to the physical science class, where the rest of the degenerates and I spent a semester trying to melt school supplies with a Bunsen burner. Pens, rulers, you name it, we melted everything. So I will push on tonight in spite of my checkered scientific past. We are here, as you know, to honor 9 laureates whose work has transformed our world, truly. Discovering how brain imaging can help us understand attention, developing the visible LED light and advancing optical communications, inventing processes that make new materials possible, linking mitochondrial DNA to complex diseases, exploring the possibilities of carbon nanomaterials, predicting material behavior with atomic scale accuracy, leading the world's first automobile company back to success, and making foundational contributions to our understanding of climate change. These are the modern-day achievements of the brilliant minds honored as laureates of the Franklin Institute Awards this evening. As awe-inspiring as they are, the 9 medalists we have gathered to honor are but the latest in a long legacy here at the Franklin Institute, one that lasts an astonishing 193 years. In that time, the work of more than 2,000 scientists, engineers, inventors, and business leaders has been carefully evaluated by their fellow scientists, often taking years of analysis and then deemed worthy of recognition here. When the Institute opened its doors in 1824, it was the hub of technical development in the city of Philadelphia, a city at the center of American innovation. And so began the Institute's tradition of recognizing the most revolutionary inventions of the day: the typewriter, the telephone, the diesel engine, radio, technologies that were nothing less than transformational. And with the inventions and scientific developments came the giants of scientific history: Tesla, Curie, Wright, Edison, Einstein. And standing on the shoulders of those giants came Stephen Hawking, Gordon Moore, Jane Goodall, and Bill Gates, and our medalists here with us tonight. And when we leave here and go out into the world, I'm sure it will be that much clearer after learning about these laureates' achievements how STEM, that's science, technology, engineering, and math, makes our lives possible. Just look at what it does to make this evening possible: the lighting, the sound, all the engineering that goes into this beautiful hall to make the night possible. The next generation of scientists will go still further, exploring how STEM can continue to illuminate the mysteries of our universe. What is truly inspiring to me, both as a journalist and a father of 2 young children, is not just these scientific advances, but the stories behind them. I love the stories. For every success, there were many, many challenges and failures. So when you look at your honorees, you're not just seeing people with great ideas, you're seeing perseverance and dedication. You're seeing struggle, and now its reward. What better lesson to remember and to teach our children? That science is both a spark of inspiration and a commitment to carefully nurturing that spark into a flame of discovery. That is the lifetime achievement the Franklin Institute Awards honors in its 193-year legacy. So before we meet our laureates, it's my honor to first introduce the president and CEO of the Franklin Institute, Mr. Larry Dubinsky. Larry is a passionate and energetic leader who positions the Institute for success every day by championing its legacy while continuing to evolve its exhibits, programs, and activities to engage more people across the region and around the world in science and learning. Ladies and gentlemen, Larry Dubinsky.
Thank you very much, Willie. We are so pleased to welcome you as Master of Ceremonies this evening. I hope you'll return to Philadelphia soon and explore the Franklin Institute with your family. Tonight, we are proud to celebrate tremendous achievements in science, technology, engineering, and business. As I know you appreciate, it takes many people to make a night like this possible. Please join me in extending heartfelt thanks to a presenting sponsor for the 15th consecutive year, Bank of America. Their partnership in supporting this awards program year after year is an expression of their support of excellence and their commitment to inspiring the next generation of leaders. Thanks to Managing Director and Market Executive at Bank of America, Jim Dever. To Managing Director and Market Executive for U.S. Trust and Franklin Institute trustee, Rob McMiniman. And to Senior Vice President Debbie O'Brien for their continued support. Thank you. Without the guidance, dedication, and support of the Institute's entire Board of Trustees, none of our work would be possible. Many of them are here with us tonight. Please know how incredibly grateful we are for all that you do. I would also like to thank our Awards Week and associate sponsor, TE Connectivity, and associate sponsors of tonight's event, FS Investments, Evolve IP, the Governor's Woods Foundation, and the Morrell Family Foundation. As you can tell, we have a record-setting crowd here this evening, and welcome to all of you. By attending tonight's celebration, you make the Institute's impactful work possible, here in this historic building, and in our new addition, the Nicholas and Athena Karabatz Pavilion, out in the community and online. Finally, I would like to thank our event leadership, co-chairs Maureen Brennan Miller and Michael Foreman, Vice Chair Leanne McMiniman, and our Friends Committee and Awards Corporate Committee. I'd also like to thank Michael's team at FS Investments, especially Mia Favorente and Tricia Maloney. These dedication of all these volunteers to this cause is exemplary, and we could not have welcomed this record crowd of friends and supporters tonight and honored these laureates so appropriately without your hard work. Thank you for your tireless energy and attention to the details that make a difference. We are also delighted that Michael Foreman will serve again next year as co-chair, joined by tonight's Vice Chair Leanne McMiniman. Thank you so much for your continued commitment, Michael and Leanne, to this event. Every year, we're honored to celebrate the Franklin Institute Awards, but this year is particularly special. For the first time in 193 years, thanks to a wonderful gift from the Morrell Family Foundation, our chairman, Don Morrell, which has created a new endowment, I am happy to announce that we are now able to provide all the Benjamin Franklin medalists with an honorarium as well as their medals. Previously, only one award, the Bauer Award for Achievement in Science, has received an honorarium. But starting today and continuing into the future, this remarkable gift further strengthens the awards program and our ability to recognize the greatest minds of our time. This is yet another example of how philanthropic support for the Franklin Institute makes what we do every day possible. The Franklin Institute is the most visited museum in Pennsylvania or New Jersey, and our passion is providing hands-on, creative opportunities to learn about science and technology. This year, instead of talking to you about the work the Franklin Institute does, I wanted to show you, so please enjoy. This year, we reached more than 1.2 million people. Here in the museum, in our after-school programs, and out in our communities. We've collected some pretty convincing evidence that science is about thinking things through, staying up late, and letting loose. And learning that with a little inspiration and a whole lot of noise, everyone has the capacity for discovery. We're here tonight to celebrate the men and women who will be role models for the next generation of scientists, whose work is unparalleled in their field, and whose determination and commitment to their research and practice has changed the world. Today, science is more important than ever. Science helps us understand the world around us, find solutions to critical problems, open minds, encourage us all to surmount obstacles, and dream of what's possible. With our youth program students and with adults, from experimenting with cutting-edge technologies to discovering what makes our hearts beat, from helping teachers be more comfortable with science in the classroom, to helping the community understand and combat the effects of climate change, from transporting people to faraway galaxies and into new worlds, to helping students get into college. Where textbooks fall short, we step in to educate, to put into practice, and above all, to inspire. Benjamin Franklin had a passion for scientific experimentation and discovery. For nearly 200 years, we have honored that passion and shared it with the scientists of the future, educating, illuminating, inspiring. This is what we do. This is your Science Center. This is the Franklin Institute.
Some nice on-camera work there, Larry. What are you doing tomorrow morning about 6 o'clock? Could use you. That was an awesome look at everything the Franklin Institute does here. I know their work is inspired every day by the example of Benjamin Franklin and by the achievement of brilliant scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs like the ones we have on stage with us tonight. So without further ado, let's begin learning about this year's award winners. Our climate is changing, and humans are largely responsible. It's a cold fact dug from the frozen desert at the bottom of the Earth. More than 22 polar expeditions, 22 of them, Claude Lorius and his team would risk their lives to settle one of the most heated debates of the 21st century. Take a look.
Je partais pour une expédition à risque. Pendant plus d'un an, personne ne pourrait venir à notre secours. On part en quittant sa famille, mais l'on ne sait pas si l'on reviendra.
Helen Keller once wrote that life is either a daring adventure or nothing. In 1955, at just 23 years old, Claude Lorius rejected a life of nothing.
Vers la fin de mes études, j'ai répondu à une annonce affichée à l'université. Recherchons jeunes étudiants pour participer aux campagnes de l'année géophysique internationale dans des terres mal connues.
Lorius left behind a life and home on the shores of Lake Bourget in France, where he had dreamt of becoming a professional soccer player, and set sail into some of the most perilous conditions on Earth.
Tout était nouveau. Nous marchions là où l'homme n'était jamais venu. Notre mission était de mesurer les conditions climatiques les plus élémentaires. Température, vent, chute de neige, épaisseur de la glace, pôle du froid de notre planète.
Isolated in a small hut, buried in the Antarctic snow, the expedition routinely risked their lives gathering data in deadly winds and formidable cold.
Nous avions parfois le sentiment d'être en danger et la peur de nous perdre. La paix ne revenait en nous que tard dans la soirée, autour de notre table avec nos assiettes et nos verres bien remplis.
Surviving the polar winter made Lorius an asset for an international expedition, which set out in 1959. Over 4 months, the team gathered scientific data while simultaneously mapping 2,400 kilometers of the planet's last frontier.
Un soir, après des travaux de forage en profondeur, nous avons bu dans notre caravane un verre de whisky dans lequel nous avions mis des glaçons de la glace ancienne. En voyant les bulles d'air pétiller dans nos verres, il m'est venu l'idée qu'elles étaient des échantillons de l'atmosphère emprisonnés dans la glace.
This was a major breakthrough. Lorius realized that when Antarctic ice froze, tiny pockets of Earth's atmosphere became trapped inside. The older the ice, the older the sample of atmosphere. Using special equipment in the lab that could detect and identify trace amounts of gas molecules in the ice samples, he could correlate the abundance of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide over time to his record of rising temperatures.
After 22 campaigns, a total of 10 years spent in the field, Lorius, working with an international collaboration of scientists, had drilled an astonishing 800,000 years into the past, almost 2 miles deep. And in the cores, the elusive cause for Antarctic warming became abundantly clear.
Une accélération de la hausse de la température et de la teneur en gaz à effet de serre depuis le début de l'ère industrielle, il y a quelques 200 ans, avec une amplitude jamais observée jusqu'alors.
Greenhouse gases in the atmosphere act like a blanket, trapping heat near the surface of the Earth. When fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas are burned for energy, it adds more heat-trapping gases to the atmosphere, which is like adding a thicker blanket.
Lorius had made some of the first scientific connections between human beings and climate change. Today, the concentration of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere are the highest they've been in 1 million years, and continuing to grow. Climate models project a range of outcomes, but how much we allow temperatures to rise and how quickly we can adapt the human systems we've built in our previously stable climate is up to us. After more than 20 polar expeditions, Claude Lorius made his last in March of 2017.
L'homme est en train de changer le climat de la Terre. J'ai été marqué de voir les impacts de notre mode de vie jusqu'au bout du monde.
Just want to underline, Claude made one of the great climate change discoveries of the last century while pounding whiskey. I don't think we should look past that. Let that be a lesson to all you young scientists. Ladies and gentlemen, the recipient of the Bauer Award for Achievement in Science, Mr. Claude Lorius. That is awesome. Claude, congratulations again. So, to our next award. Chemists Krzysztof Matyjaszewski and Mitsuo Sawamoto conduct research on opposite ends of the Earth, but they're bound together by their revolutionary method of creating polymers, one molecule at a time.
Chains, the many forming the one. From the atomic strings that create life to time itself. Moment to moment, action to reaction, nature turns on the making and breaking of chains. And now, two researchers on opposite sides of the planet are forever linked by a discovery that gives humankind an ability nature typically reserves for itself. The power of creation accomplished molecule by molecule.
I was born in a very small town, in fact, Konstantinov, and then moved to a larger town to study chemistry.
The son of a veterinarian and an aspiring chemist, Krzysztof Matyjaszewski grew up surrounded by science. He completed his PhD at the Polish Academy of Sciences, and in 1977, as martial law was declared in Poland in response to Soviet dissent, he left his home country, ultimately for Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where he began his career at Carnegie Mellon University teaching the science of polymers, versatile materials constructed by atoms arranged in long chains. For more than 700 years, Kyoto served as the ancient imperial capital of Japan. Mitsuo Sawamoto, born to two teachers in 1951, would eventually help return Kyoto to prominence as a center for groundbreaking science.
My life childhood is not very much extraordinary. When we have a time to think about where we would go into university, which department we will select, then the teacher also recommended me, if you are interested in chemistry, you should go polymer chemistry.
Put simply, a polymer is a bunch of individual molecules called monomers bonded together in a long chain. By mixing molecules that have a natural affinity for one another, chemists can initiate ultra-fast chain reactions to make a variety of materials with different properties. These molecular combinations are key to a polymer's properties, and this is where things get interesting. For instance, take the soft polymer used in contact lenses. If you've ever worn contacts, you know you have to store them in solution or they'll dry out. This is because inside the lens, the water molecules exist separately from the polymer chains and are free to evaporate over time. But what if we could design a custom polymer with repeating sequences of water molecules that are locked in as part of the chain? We'd get contact lenses that would never dry out. But a design this intricate isn't likely to happen in a natural chain reaction because the reactions occur at a high speed. To custom design a chain, you'd have to somehow catch the monomers and attach each link molecule by molecule like the links in a necklace.
This was chemistry that could change the world, bringing into existence fundamental creations not previously found in nature. If this could be done, artificial skin could become commonplace in hospitals. Highly customized polymer chains could produce artificial muscles, which might flex under electrical stimulation. Frictionless floors could allow thousands of pounds to slide freely, pushed by a force equal to the weight of a paperclip. Both scientists went against the collective wisdom of the community and began work that would take years to complete. In 1995, both independently prevailed, almost simultaneously, publishing papers that described two highly similar methods of doing what the community had thought impossible.
So we have many ways to create some new molecules, new materials that maybe God hasn't made it, and also nature maybe failed to make it.
The method is inexpensive and doable with existing manufacturing infrastructure. The multi-billion-dollar polymer industry is now starting to adopt the process, meaning that science fiction is well on its way to becoming reality.
Ladies and gentlemen, recipients of the Benjamin Franklin Medal in Chemistry, Krzysztof Matyjaszewski and Mitsuo Sawamoto. Gentlemen, congratulations. Einstein taught us that energy production is entwined with everything in the universe. The discoveries of pediatrician Doug Wallace reveal that for human beings, that link is profoundly personal.
Earth, 2 billion BCE. One of the most momentous events for humankind is about to play out in the water. In a primordial struggle for survival, a tiny bacterium is engulfed by a single-celled organism. Neither organism is harmed. Instead, the bacterium integrates into its host, turning oxygen into energy in exchange for protection from the outside world. Symbiosis. You are the result. Today, the would-be invaders live on in each of us as the mitochondria, the powerhouses in our cells. Doug Wallace of the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia spent decades studying them, uncovering mitochondrial mysteries and shedding light on the origins of humankind.
I've always wanted to know why, so there was never any doubt that I would spend my life seeking answers to questions of why.
Wallace went into the biological sciences, healthcare, with a strong side interest in physics, namely energy production. To study energy production, a good place to start is the power plant. By 1971, he had humankind's oldest friends under a microscope.
Each cell in your body contains thousands of mitochondria, which work constantly to turn oxygen into energy. Because mitochondria descend from bacteria, they contain their own simple but separate DNA.
For 15 years, Wallace worked to decipher the basic principles of mitochondrial genetics before having a major breakthrough.
Wallace took mitochondrial DNA samples of everyone he knew, mothers, fathers, and children alike, painstakingly comparing the samples and watching for patterns.
And what we saw is that the pattern of all the children was identical to the mother and had nothing to do with the father.
Wallace called home to his mother, an avid feminist, to report a discovery that some scientists believe may be one of the most important in modern medicine: that only women can pass along the powerhouses of our cells.
I knew she always believed that all the power was coming from the women in the first place. And I thought she would be very pleased, but in fact I got silence. And I said, well, do you want to comment? And she said, well, you were supposed to be Karen, and you did not come out Karen, so you murdered my mitochondrial DNA, and she hung up.
But Wallace was onto something. Like all DNA, mitochondrial DNA changes over time, or mutates. If mothers pass along these mutations to their children, Wallace reasoned, then he should be able to do something extraordinary. Look way back into the past and uncover the history of human migration.
Picture a bracelet with stone settings handed down from your great-grandparents. 3 generations own it before it's passed along to you, each generation losing a few stones along the way. Now, let's say every owner photographed the bracelet upon receiving it. You could order the photographs chronologically simply by comparing the patterns of missing stones, like this. Now pretend the patterns of stones, made incredibly more complex, are mutations in mitochondrial DNA sampled from people around the world. If a certain mutation pattern on one continent exists on another, we can infer the lineages are connected.
Wallace had peered hundreds of thousands of years into the past and traced human migrations out of Africa and across the globe. Wallace furthered his investigation into mitochondrial DNA mutations, linking them to metabolic disorders, autism, and even aging.
Wallace discovered that over time, as these mutations accumulate, the diseases of old age begin to manifest.
When I was much younger, I asked my mother what it was like to be old. And besides hitting me, she answered that question, I just don't have the energy I used to. And people laugh at that, but I believe that is absolutely right. I think we're following the equivalent of a metropolitan brownout. As we get older, we have less and less power plants, less and less energy, and ultimately our systems no longer can function adequately, and we call that disease.
Currently, Wallace is paving a path for mitochondrial gene replacement therapies that may one day increase our lifespans and help reverse diseases that cannot be treated any other way. Wallace may be one of the only living scientists whose body of work demystifies humankind from its very inception and continues to brighten our future, one breakthrough at a time.
Ladies and gentlemen, the recipient of the Benjamin Franklin Medal in Life Science, Douglas C. Wallace. Congratulations, Dr. Wallace. Got a tough mom there, too, huh? Now I'd like to introduce a longtime supporter and partner of this awards program. Ladies and gentlemen, the market president of Bank of America, lead supporter of the Franklin Institute Awards ceremony and dinner for the 15th consecutive year, Jim Dever.
Thank you, Willie. Good evening. It is my privilege to represent Bank of America and our longstanding support of the Franklin Institute Awards. The 9 laureates we're honoring this evening embody an outstanding range and depth of achievement, and as Willie noted earlier, a lifetime of dedication to their fields. It is truly an honor to celebrate their achievements with all of you tonight. Bank of America works in Philadelphia and around the country to help people achieve their dreams and to build positive change in our communities. That is why we are so proud to partner with the Franklin Institute for the 15th consecutive year. I'm new to the ceremony this year, but plenty of people have told me that once you attend awards, You come back year after year because it is the best event in Philadelphia. After seeing just a few of these laureate stories this evening, I have to agree. This is impactful work and a special occasion that Bank of America is proud to support. That is why I'm so excited to share with all of you tonight that we are extending our commitment as presenting sponsor through the Institute's 200th anniversary in 2024. We will be so proud to celebrate that milestone, and I hope you all return year after year to celebrate achievements in science and technology with us. By supporting tonight's event, we not only celebrate this year's class of laureates, but also support the Institute's work that happens every day, inspiring young and old alike, creating opportunities for underserved students to enter STEM fields, and serving as a cultural anchor in the city and as one of the nation's leading science centers. You are all helping to support this work by being here tonight. On behalf of Bank of America, we are honored to partner with the Franklin Institute. Our congratulations to all the laureates on their remarkable achievements. Thank you very much.
Jim, thank you so much, and again for the renewed commitment from Bank of America to this night. And now let us learn about the work of three more of our distinguished laureates. Often the smallest movements power the biggest technologies. For more than 50 years, Marvin Cohen has studied the behavior of electrons. His methods of predicting their flow once energized Silicon Valley and made possible technologies that changed the world.
You know, they say picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, for theorists, often an equation is worth 1,000 pictures. Everyday life is so different in what you feel about things compared to what's going on behind the scenes. Why would I spend a lot of time thinking about that world, the quantum world? And the answer is that there's no other option.
Marvin Cohen is not just the second most cited physicist on Earth. He's a painter of nature's tiniest landscapes, an explorer who set out upon the temperamental waves of the quantum world to bring the designs of our universe up from the depths, building a 50-year legacy that gave humankind the ability to see the inner workings of matter, as well as the ability to create super-efficient processors and nanomaterials. And he did it using only a primitive computer and the power of his mind.
I was a great student in Canada, and then I came here.
Cohen spent most of his high school years on the streets of San Francisco, sneaking into gritty jazz clubs, underage, with nothing but gravitas and a saxophone.
I didn't take school very seriously. I played jazz. I had bands. I even had Johnny Mathis in my band. I actually gave him advice. I told him never to sing popular music. He should just sing jazz. I don't always give the best advice.
But Cohen would eventually trade his saxophone for science. He took a lifelong interest in physics to the University of Chicago, where he completed his PhD in 1964. And in 1966, Cohen unleashed an idea upon the physics community that would make science history.
Knowing how electrons behave within a material helps engineers predict how the material might function in real-world applications. Applying quantum mechanics to calculate the movements of electrons inside a material creates math too complicated to solve in any practical sense. Early physicists had sought to approximate electronic structure using equations that would limit all but the most basic computations. However, the results were often overly simplified and couldn't be used to accurately describe real-world materials.
Like a movie streaming over a slow internet connection, less data typically means blurry pictures. This may work fine for streaming simple shapes like this, but typically for complex imagery like depictions of nature, the more data we eliminate, the less usable the images become. Cohen decided to shed data that didn't matter. Cohen found a way to use a single piece of experimental data and a computer to create an understanding of how the materials work.
And in the end, he developed a method of writing computer programs that physicists could use to predict the properties of real materials using simple, downloadable code. This forever changed computational physics.
I saw this computer program, it looked familiar, and I said, how much do you want for that? He said, oh, it's really simple. And he says, it's only $500. And I said, only $500? Do you know how much work I put into that thing and you're selling it for a lousy $500?
The availability of Cohen's methods set off a gold rush in Silicon Valley as engineers jockeyed to create processors that are more efficient. Cohen's methods would help physicists understand the properties of supermaterials like graphene, and his extraordinary body of work would include major successes for a field he largely helped found.
We've all looked at the sky and tried to understand how did it all start. Sort of the Wizard of Oz, what's behind the screen. I hope we don't find it's just that wizard, but it's an important part of why we're alive, to find out about things of this kind.
Ladies and gentlemen, the recipient of the Benjamin Franklin Medal in Physics, Marvin L. Cohen. Congratulations, sir. All that, and he was in a band with Johnny Mathis. Unbelievable. All right, some scientists find inspiration in vastness of space, others in the quantum realms of atoms. For Michael Posner, the deepest mysteries in the universe lie just behind our eyes.
It's a city stamped with a capital O and surrounded by Pinot Noir. A good place to sit and think, either amidst the natural beauty of the Pacific Northwest or in a lab with 100 leads stuck to your head. Because you see, somewhere here in Eugene, Oregon, sometime in the 1970s, Michael Posner had a thought, and then he tried to measure it. Posner spent much of his childhood skipping around the West Coast with his father, a lawyer working for the USO in California during World War II. After the war, the family settled 2 states north, where Posner would later attend the University of Washington.
I majored in physics in college. I wasn't very good at it, but it was extremely beautiful.
While graduate school would see him trade physics for human psychology, the idea struck him that the mind, staggering in complexity, could be broken down, measured. Posner wondered, was it possible to measure thought?
When Posner first started peering into the living human mind, he did so with the technology of the 1970s.
We had clocks, we could measure things in millisecond accuracy.
Posner began timing the thought processes of the mind. A research subject sat in front of a screen, fingers hovering over a set of buttons. The screen would light up with 2 symbols, in this case, 2 uppercase A's, and in another case, an uppercase and a lowercase a. Subjects would press one button or another, depending on whether the letters were the same or different.
If one is uppercase and one is lowercase, you have to actually deal with the names. That extra time turned out to be about 1/10 of a second.
That 1/10 of a second was common in virtually all test subjects, meaning Posner was looking at the processing speed of a specific mechanism related to language. In other words, the mechanics of thought.
His insights began to pave the way for the new field of cognitive science. He was fast becoming one of the most cited scientists in the history of psychology. The next decade saw Posner push his reaction time studies to their limit, but he wanted to go further. He wanted to look at the neurobiology underlying the processes he had measured. By then, the technological revolution had met the 1980s, giving us Simon, the Rubik's Cube, and positron emission tomography, also known as a PET scan.
Posner had a suspicion that PET should be able to image the biology underlying the thought processes he had timed. In a PET scan, a person is injected with a special tracer drug that's then carried through the bloodstream. Now, when we have a thought, blood flows to the area of the brain responsible. Posner could measure the time it took for tracer molecules in the blood to be detected by sensors placed over different regions of the brain. This allowed him to pinpoint where thoughts took place, as well as their duration. Suddenly, scientists could see the human brain in action.
Posner's first PET studies painted clearer pictures of how language functions in the brain than anything available at the time, and it had a side benefit for neurosurgery patients.
The way that neurosurgeons worked on the language system, which involved threading a catheter up through the carotid artery, I mean, it was very invasive.
Posner had eliminated this, revolutionizing neurological diagnostics. Over the years, he made groundbreaking discoveries as he uncovered neural processes that previously had been hidden. His exploration of the nature of attention has helped broaden treatment options for disorders such as ADHD.
I've always been interested in trying to ask fundamental questions, and of course, cognitive neuroscience has the human brain, which is complicated, not as complicated maybe as a whole natural world, but pretty complicated, and gives us a chance to work on fundamental questions.
However, it may be that Posner's most profound contribution is to knowledge itself. He's pulled another thread from the fabric of our planet's most confounding, unraveling mystery: the nature of us.
Ladies and gentlemen, recipient of the Benjamin Franklin Medal in Computer and Cognitive Science, Michael I. Posner. Congratulations, Michael. Long ago, humankind's obsession with making light ended our dependence on the sun and illuminated the night. And now, ages after the first campfires, we can make light cleanly, cheaply, and almost completely without heat. And that is thanks to Nick Holonyak and the LED.
Light, keeper of mysteries, a conundrum aglow. Light captivates us with an existence awash in brilliant color. And after 200,000 years of heat-driven illumination, with what may turn out to be one of the most important developments in engineering since Thomas Edison lit the Earth, Nick Holonyak has given humankind the LED, and a future bathed in a spectrum of cool running, long-lasting, ultra-efficient light. The story of modern illumination begins in 1928, deep down in the dark hollows of the Earth.
Life in the beginning was difficult because where it starts for me is in southern Illinois, in the coal fields.
As Eastern European immigrants, Holonyak's parents had little education and virtually no possessions when they came to the U.S., but they had a knack for surviving in the mines.
But I could make anything I wanted, and if it was a slingshot, I could do that. If it was a bow and arrow, I could do that. If it was a rubber gun, I could do that. I could do any of those things.
With money saved up from 3 years as a railroader, Holonyak, the odds stacked against him, put himself through college, launching an academic career that would earn him a PhD in physics from the University of Illinois and eventually land him a position at General Electric in 1957. There, surrounded by burnt-out incandescent bulbs, Holonyak asked a question: could he create a light bulb that might last a century?
Incandescent light bulbs have a short lifespan. This is because they create light by heating a small filament within the bulb to a temperature so hot that the filament begins to evaporate away. After so many hours of use, the filament degrades until...
Holonyak thought he might lose the filament altogether, with a method of releasing visible light directly from electrons.
Holonyak knew that electrons orbit the nucleus of an atom at varying distances. They can orbit close to the nucleus, like this, or farther away from the nucleus, like this. Typically, the farther away an electron orbits, the more energy it has. When excited, a far-orbiting electron can jump to a closer orbit if there isn't another electron occupying the space. But to do so, it must shed a small amount of energy. That energy is released from the electron as a photon, or light.
Holonyak experimented over long nights in the lab, searching for materials that would release visible light when excited with an electric current. Many of his peers considered this a fool's errand, but in 1962, a small, steady red glow late at night would see him to vindication.
You asked me in there somewhere, What did my colleagues say about it? They swore at me and I returned the favor because they were wrong.
What Holonyak had invented, we know today as a visible light spectrum LED, or light emitting diode. Cool running, power efficient. Where an incandescent bulb would burn out in a few months of constant use, Holonyak's LEDs would last for generations.
After 100 years of constant use, it may lose only half its brightness. That's because we don't use a bulb, a filament, or a vacuum.
The potential future wasn't lost on engineers, even as far back as the 1960s.
Let's look at markets to come. How about a flat headlight as wide as your car, or a wristwatch without a dial that shows the time in numbers, or an inch-deep color TV set? That's part of the future.
LEDs quickly gave rise to the first digital displays. They run cool, consume a fraction of the energy of a standard bulb, and can be so small that millions of them can be arranged into the displays on our walls and our mobile devices. The success would rocket Holonyak to fame in the scientific community as the old railroader from Illinois who brightened the future with light.
Unfortunately, Nick's health didn't allow him to be with us this evening, so accepting the Benjamin Franklin Medal in Electrical Engineering on his behalf, Dr. Holonyak's former student, now Steve W. Chaddock Endowed Chair in Electro-Optics at Georgia Tech, Russell Dupuy. It is now my pleasure to introduce a scientist, an engineer, and a business leader. Throughout his career, the aforementioned Dr. Don Morell has developed and managed programs involving advanced materials for aerospace, biomedical, and pharmaceutical applications. As chair of the Board of Trustees at the Franklin Institute, Dr. Morell has been an integral part of the awards program's continued success. Ladies and gentlemen, Don Morell.
Thank you very much, Willie, and good evening, everyone. On behalf of the trustees of the Institute, it is indeed my pleasure to add my welcome to everyone in attendance tonight as we recognize the profound scientific and business achievements of the 2017 Franklin and Bauer laureates. For more than 190 years, the Institute, at the direction of the Pennsylvania legislature, has honored the legacy of Benjamin Franklin by acknowledging significant advances in the sciences and engineering that benefits society and the world. Recognition of our laureates is made possible through the hard work of the Committee on Science and the Arts, chaired by Professor Jerry Jones of Villanova University, and the Bauer Business Awards Selection Committee, chaired by Professor Michael Useem of the Wharton School, in addition to the International Selection Committee for the Bauer Award for Achievement in Science, chaired by Dr. Paul Offit of the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia and the University of Pennsylvania. Please join me in recognizing the contributions and time of these remarkable people to the Institute. We are also joined this evening in celebration by a number of members of the Society of Laureates. I invite you to join me now in a round of applause to recognize these remarkable individuals. I'd also like to extend a thank you to Bank of America and Jim Dever for their extraordinary commitment and support of this event through 2024. The Franklin Institute's mission is to inspire a passion for learning about science and technology, and that mission is more important now than it has ever been. The pace of scientific and technological change and discovery is increasing, and with those changes come both exciting possibilities and societal implications. As we look to changes we face, healthcare, climate change, sources of sustainable energy, cybersecurity and communications, and infrastructure, all of these will require technical solutions to secure our children's future. The Institute's role is to help the public understand the science behind these critical issues that affect all of our lives so that they can make informed decisions. We do this by making science fun and also interesting, so that even people who are intimidated by it feel a connection to it. And we work to change and engage our children in the next generation. We make them curious about the world around them, a world with a foundation in STEM that will be more different than we can possibly begin to imagine by the time that they are grown. As we help people adapt to changes in science and the world around us, the Institute is going to need to change as well and adapt with them to help people learn in new and different ways. The Board of Trustees and the staff of the Institute have spent the past year thinking through these issues and looking forward to 2024, when we will celebrate the 200th anniversary of this remarkable institute. 200 years, really a remarkable milestone. And we've been asking ourselves when we get there, what do we want to be? Well, stay tuned. The new strategic plan that will guide the Institute from now until 2024 calls for more impact through greater focus and direct engagement. To many, we are the theme that gets them to college and to a career. We are the catalyst that helps them imagine a different path. And we create moments that inspire a lifetime of curiosity. We look forward to sharing this new plan with you come this fall. Tonight, by participating in the celebration of great scientific, technological, and business achievement, you have become part of our history. You cannot attend this ceremony without being changed by the stories you hear in these videos. And you can't visit the Institute without being changed by the experience of touching a human brain, of watching a drone fly, or swimming with a virtual reality whale, or any of the other thousands of other moments that children experience every day that illuminate the world just a little bit more clearly. All of this work is made possible by everyone here this evening, our trustees and our committees, our community and our business supporters, and of course, our incredible staff. Through your continued generous support, we can continue to illuminate the wonders of our world. Never doubt the impact and importance of your support. It can be seen every day in the delight of children who experience the Institute and all of its wonderful offerings. Thank you for all that you do. Congratulations to our 2017 laureates. You are the inspiration for the next generation of scientists and engineers, some of whom we hope will follow in your footsteps in the future. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Don, and thank you for all you do for this wonderful organization. I'm going to add one more shout out just because it's the business I'm in. These videos are phenomenal. So a shout out to the video team putting these together. I wish all my science classes were like that growing up. Pop the video in, I would have done much better in life. All right, now let's learn about our final two laureates of the evening. Mildred Dresselhaus was more than a physicist. She was an ever-fascinated kid from Brooklyn who showed a skeptical world that women and big ideas are not mutually exclusive. Soon after she passed away, just this past February the 20th, I had the honor of profiling her life on my show Sunday Today on NBC. Millie's pioneering spirit lives on in the very infrastructure of our future. And tonight, we honor a great mind and remember her reign as the Queen of Carbon.
November 11th, 1930. A bread line stretches for a mile in the Bronx. In Brooklyn, a girl is born to unemployed immigrants. And in Manhattan, Albert Einstein, in one of his more prosaic moments, patents a home refrigerator in the midst of the greatest depression the U.S. had ever known. Of all the events of November 11th, just one would send ripples beyond the end of the decade. The girl born to immigrants would go on to unlock the mysteries of one of life's elemental building blocks, spark an engineering revolution well on its way to changing the modern world, and rise to global prominence as the queen of carbon science.
Well, I had unusual childhood, I imagine, for maybe not so unusual. Well, will you decide yourself?
Mildred Dresselhaus began her ascension to the carbon throne early in life with a hand-me-down violin and a scholarship to the prestigious Greenwich House Music School, won at just 4 years old. But Dresselhaus's talents extended beyond music, into the sphere of academia. With a natural gift for numbers and science, as well as some help from her friends at Greenwich, Dresselhaus found her way out of poverty to a Fulbright scholarship in the UK, and eventually to the University of Chicago, where she befriended famous physicist and Franklin Institute medalist Enrico Fermi.
I used to walk to work with him. He was a big influence.
The only female student in the physics department, Dresselhaus had to be strong and resourceful when necessary. Just ask her about the time she took apart the world's first nuclear reactor to make superconducting wire and helium for her PhD research. That same fearlessness would help Dresselhaus attain trailblazer status in 1960, when she decided to do something the rest of the physics community failed to take seriously: break down one of the strongest materials on Earth, carbon.
If you've ever used a pencil, you've worked with carbon in the form of graphite. Chunks of graphite, like the point of this pencil, are made up of layers, and tiny flakes fall easily away with only a small amount of pressure. But get this, a single sheet of graphite, called graphene, has unparalleled strength, even though it's only one carbon atom thick. Dresselhaus wanted to know why.
Going back to my background, I was always looking for frontiers. I'm still looking for frontiers.
Dresselhaus began a 3-decade journey in the lab, studying the quantum properties of carbon, detailing the way the electrons behave in a variety of environments. She did this first with graphene, and later with tiny rolled-up graphene cylinders called nanotubes. Her insights would lay the foundation for the suite of carbon-based supermaterials poised to change almost every major industry. Here's a peek at that future.
Layered into a single sheet no thicker than a piece of cellophane, graphene could easily support the weight of an elephant. Coming soon, new ultralight planes and spaceships, as well as radical new architectural marvels like taller, greener buildings, even elevators that travel into space. Because of Dresselhaus, we know that graphene conducts electricity much more efficiently than copper, and while weighing only a fraction of it. Imagine a smartphone that rolls up like a piece of paper. Or how about an electric car that charges more quickly than you could fill a tank with gas? It didn't take long for the physics community to get on board with Dresselhaus. As far back as the 1960s, academia realized the potential impact of her groundbreaking work. In response, the MIT physics community found within itself the will to do something equally unprecedented. And so in 1968, at 38 years old, Mildred Dresselhaus became the first tenured female professor of physics at MIT.
Some of the ideas that I try to leave my students with, if you somehow manage your time properly, that's an important thing to learn how to do anyway, then sometimes you can find time to do crazy stuff that might change the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, accepting the Benjamin Franklin Medal in Materials Science and Engineering on behalf of her late grandmother, Mildred Dresselhaus, Elizabeth Dresselhaus. Couple more notes on Millie, because she's so cool. When she arrived at MIT in the early 1960s, there was a department of 1,000 scientists. She was one of 2 women in that department of 1,000 scientists. She was a real trailblazer. She also, in case you haven't seen it, a couple of months ago, in fact, right before she passed away, starred in a General Electric ad that aired during the Super Bowl. It imagined a society that celebrated people like Millie instead of some other people we're all thinking of. It had her on red carpets and Us Weekly and everything else. Very good ad. YouTube that later. But I digress. So great leadership makes great science possible, and sometimes great science makes great leadership possible in turn. An aviation engineer who designed his way to the top of the Boeing company, Alan Mulally would later take the center stage in American history as the man who rescued the legacy of Henry Ford.
The journalist said, well, you probably don't know it, but the automobile industry is a very buttoned-up place. Very sophisticated suits, starched shirts, cufflinks. Is it going to be okay for the executives at the Ford Motor Company in the world headquarters to wear sport coat and slacks tomorrow? So rubbed my chin and very decisively I said, Yes. Next day, 3-inch headlines in the Detroit News. Culture change has already begun at Ford.
You'll rarely see Alan Mulally in a suit. True to his Kansas roots, he's casual, an engineer known for designing jets, a father famous for raising his kids with weekly family business plan review meetings. He's also the non-traditional CEO who piloted a flying American icon and later stepped up to the challenge of saving a sinking one.
Well, I grew up in Lawrence, Kansas, pretty modest means, but a lot of love from our parents. I've always liked art, and I liked airplanes and cars and things that moved, and then that led me to physics.
He carried that love of physics through engineering school at the University of Kansas, and in 1969, he started a career at the Boeing Company, working on the 707, 727, 737, and most every other jet that starts and ends with a 7. He'd spent more than 35 years there, working his way up to president of Boeing Commercial Airplanes.
Commercial airplanes are just magical. The compelling vision for a commercial airplane is to help get people together around the world, because when we do, then people find out we have more in common than we're different.
At Boeing, Mulally developed a leadership philosophy he called working together. Some of the key components seem taken from an engineer's handbook. Others break entirely from standard corporate practice. Combined, working together helped him make Boeing the foremost aircraft company in the U.S.
As a CEO, I never thought I would leave Boeing. And then one day I get a call from Bill Ford. I'm going, Bill Ford, the great-grandson of Henry Ford? I mean, he changed the world and opened the highways to all mankind.
Franklin Institute medalist Henry Ford founded the Ford Motor Company in 1903. By 2006, the American icon was in trouble, facing a loss of $17 billion. And Bill Ford wanted Mulally to help save it.
So here I am with my working together watch on, working together on my watch. And I'm reading these quotes from Henry Ford. And one of his most famous quotes is, "Coming together is a beginning. Staying together is progress. Working together is success." Well, now I'm crying.
Mulally accepted. Ford had a new CEO.
I land in Detroit, and the Ford people picked me up in a Land Rover. And I'm going, note to self, I just left Boeing to go to Ford, and I'm riding along in a Land Rover.
But when he arrived, he realized that he wasn't alone. Not one of the executive cars in the garage was a Ford. For Mulally, this was the first indicator that Ford had problems. Mulally employed working together to change the existing corporate culture and promoted a unified vision for success he called One Ford. He famously mortgaged all of Ford's assets, borrowing $23.6 billion, and saw to a sweeping restructure. Ford's profits grew steadily over the years. And then, in 2009, disaster hit.
But this is not a normal economic downturn.
Now, with our economy absolutely on its back.
Past year, our auto industry has shed over 400,000 jobs.
The country is in total crisis, as is our industry at the moment.
Auto giants like Chrysler and GM had fallen to the financial crisis, rescued by massive taxpayer-funded bailouts. In just 3 years, Mullally's Ford, the company with the $17 billion record loss in 2006, was so solvent, it didn't take a dime.
Because there's just nothing neater in the world than talented people working together to do something for the greater good in our world.
Ladies and gentlemen, the recipient of the Bauer Award for Business Leadership, Mr. Alan R. Mulally. Alan, congratulations. The 9 laureates before you have transformed our world, and we hope their stories have inspired you tonight. Their work, no doubt, will inspire many others to follow in their footsteps. So please join me one more time in congratulating the 2017 Franklin Institute laureates.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the awards ceremony for the 2017 Franklin Institute laureates. We now invite you to make your way to dinner in the museum galleries. Please take out your tickets for guidance to your dining room. We hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.